Hello everyone, it's the Left-Handed Lady today coming at you with something a little bit different. We're going to do a pen pal with me. I have recently really gotten into writing letters to the friends that I can't see, and I would like to share what I enjoy doing with you. I'm just going to be using some scrap paper, some scrap watercolor paper, and scrap colored paper, as well as my watercolor pens, to design two different cards for today. We're going to start off with a small size of scrap watercolor paper that I've cut to fit inside of a card small enough to go inside of a small envelope. Now I just drew an oval lightly with pencil, and I'm going to take my watercolor brush pens and just lightly drag them across the page to create little floral leaves of all different shapes and sizes. I'm doing the first batch with this darker hunter green, and then I'm going to go back in with a light green, to add a little bit more foliage to it. Adding different colors of leaves and different types of leaves makes it look a little bit more natural and less sketched out. And as you can tell, I didn't prior sketch this. I'm literally just going off of what I feel in the moment, and I think it's turning out better than I planned it to. I'm just going to take that red, really dark red color, and using the very fine tip of that bristle and just making little squiggly lines going from a tiny circle outwards. And it makes the petals of a rose. Very simple flower, not trying to give it too much detail. I'm going to go back in with a pinky purple and do the same thing. This is a really, really pale pink with like a hint of purple in it, and it barely shows up with the lighting I have, but it looks gorgeous on the page. Then I'm going in with an even more purple, very pastel, and doing tiny little flowers just to fill in all those gaps, because I didn't want too many roses on the pages. Now taking my Sharpie fine liner and tracing everything lightly. I'm doing very hard lines on the leaves because I want them to be crisp, but on the flowers I'm very roughly going around those edges and just getting a little bit of detail to the center. I almost want this to look like half finished or weathered in a way. Doing little floral botanical pieces like this really helps you practice with whatever medium you're working on, so I encourage it. Take small pieces of scrap paper, and if you like the way they turn out, turn them into cards. And if you don't, keep practicing. It's a lot of fun. So here's where you are going to add in your saying. I was thinking about putting thinking of you, and it just didn't seem very personal to the person that I'm sending this to, so I decided to do hello beautiful. Now you can do whatever you please. You could turn it on its side and write their name in it. I just took my gel pens, or not my gel pens, sorry, my watercolor brush pens, and just kind of lightly laid down some color so that I could write in my pen and it would stand out. Now I'm taking some just regular printer paper that's colored and gluing this to it, and then cutting out a card shape. And as you can tell, I put it on backwards the first time. And I'm just using a heavy object to make sure it stays flat. making sure that it fits inside of that envelope. Now, I'm going to do this a couple times because I never liked the color that I used to write her name, but this is my little trick on these colored envelopes. I like to take a piece of printer paper and write out the name of the person that I'm sending it to and a couple lines for their address, just to make it a little bit easier to write on, because sometimes the envelopes that I'm using are not necessarily easy to read once you have written on them. So then I'm doing it again, trying it with that darker brush pen, and I still didn't like it. So then I went with like a pastel-y purple, and I kind of liked it, and I just decided to go with it because it wasn't going to get any better. I don't know what color would have been perfect, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I tore up some of that other paper that was from the leftovers of making the card, and I added that to the outside of the envelope, and it makes it look like these two pieces were meant to go together. They were meant for each other. They weren't just something that I found in my cabinet, and it gives it a little bit of personality. So now we're going to move on to the second card, and I am taking another piece of just regular colored printer paper and a bunch of little scrap pieces from different projects that I had. I hoard all paper because I love it so much, and this is my excuse for using it all. So I'm just going to take these little pieces and kind of map out what I want to use. I'm going to add some washi tape in and just go with it. Start ripping and tearing and figuring out where they go the best. Now, yes, this is a picture from a coloring book, but I thought it was cute and it gave a little bit of character to the page. So it doesn't have to be pretty crafting paper. It could be as simple as your child's coloring book pages, or even pages that you have colored and you want to add a little bit of color to your page. Rip them up, add a little bit of texture and color to your page. Now, I cannot for the life of me remember where I got this black paper, but as I was laying it down, I loved it so much that I actually had to go to the store and buy white gel pens because I didn't own any and I couldn't write on this paper. And it was a great excuse for me to buy some Jelly Roll pens. And as much as everybody has highly recommended them, I highly recommend them to you because they are like butter on the paper. Now I'm just going to take that washi tape and kind of layer it over like it's holding down the pages. I really like the way that that looks. It's not functional, but it's cute. And it really ties everything together, especially with the envelope being decorated in the same kind of washi tape. So I decided to use that little speech bubble that said draw as his dear name space. So I'm taking the same kind of piece of white paper that I have scrapped and just writing out the name that I want and dear and cutting it out the way that I wanted and placing it inside of that. Now this letter is to my biggest fan and my favorite subscriber, and I don't think that I would be continuing to do this if I didn't have his support. So this is just one big thank you letter to him. Now both of these are to personal friends of mine, so I'm not going to show you the whole writing the entire letter because in all honesty, that's for us to know and you to find out. But I am interested in seeing how y'all recreate your own little letters to friends or cards out of scrap paper. So please comment below if you decide to recreate any of these. And we're going to go in and decorate that envelope with the same colored paper just so to make it ties into the letter. Really looks like they're part of a pack of writing utensils. Makes it look like you really put a lot of thought into it. And what I love about tearing paper is you do not have to be perfect, and it looks great. Now, one trick that I'm going to let you know is wrap it around to the back. Make it look like it's meant to be on both sides. It makes it a little bit more cohesive. Now, using the same technique I did on the last one, I'm just using some printer paper and some lines and his name for the address point, because this metallic paper is very difficult to write on. Tying it all in with the same colored washi tapes, and there you have it. And they match perfectly. So now once you have finished, your desk is going to be destroyed because you have ripped up paper and gone through all of your supplies, and that's okay because mine is too. Now once you have written out all of your letters, you can fold them up. This one is going into a longer style letter, so I folded it trifold. And little tip, since the coronavirus, we can't lick our letters, so use some glue or even some runner sticky tape to seal up your letters, just to make sure we're not transferring anything to our good old friends. Now on this one, I decided to put some lined paper in just because I was having a hard time keeping my fingers and my words straight. So this isn't optional, but I did put something heavy on it to let it dry flat before I started to write on it. And then I finished it out and added a little message to the outside of the envelope. And there you have it. 2 beautiful letters to friends that I hope make them smile. Now this is really easy to do, and I really encourage you because the amount of smiles it brings is incredible. If you don't live with your parents, send them a letter. If you haven't seen your best friend in a month, send them a letter. If you haven't talked to your grandma, send her a letter. It's so personable, and it's something that they will keep forever. Thank you for watching, and I will see y'all next week. Remember, never stop creating.